Good morning, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today to join us for the 34th Annual Memorial commemorating the events of December 6, 1989. Today, we also commemorate National Day of Remembrance on Action on Violence Against Women. Not only is it important to remember this tragedy and the lives that were lost, but we need to look forward to think about how we can continue to dismantle sexism in our classrooms, workplaces, and homes. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge that I, as a white woman studying engineering here at Queen's, have immense privilege to be able to live, learn, and work on this land, which has been stewarded by Indigenous peoples for generations. Indigenous perspectives are often absent in discussions about women in STEM, which limits our understanding and progress. We are gathered today on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and Huron-Wendat peoples, protected under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Agreement, which calls for shared knowledge, peace, and mutual respect among those who share it. To acknowledge this traditional territory is to recognize its longer history, one predating the establishment of the earliest European colonies. The Indigenous community in Kingston continues to reflect the area's Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee roots, with a significant Métis community, as well as First Peoples from other nations across Turtle Island present here today. As we honor the victims of the École Polytechnique massacre, let us also recognize the systemic barriers faced by Indigenous peoples and Indigenous women in STEM and beyond. I encourage us all to take the time to learn from Indigenous knowledge, advocate for their inclusion, and support their advancement as part of our commitment to truth and reconciliation. I would also like to note that today the topics are sensitive. You are welcome to step away for a moment if need be. If you are able to, please rise for the playing of the national anthem performed by the Queen's a cappella group, the Caledonias. We will now hear from Associate Dean Contopoulou, who will share her reflections and formally open the memorial.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us to this memorial event, which serves as an opportunity for us to honor the memory of the 14 women whose lives were tragically taken in the events at the École Polytechnique de Montreal on December 6, 1989. Thank you for the invitation. I feel privileged for the opportunity to reflect with all of you on these tragic events and how the project was currently and in the society, and also in terms of the engineering community. When this tragic event happened, I was an ocean away studying chemical engineering in Greece. Back then it was the non-internet era. The news didn't reach us. During that time there was another tragic event in my country. A disgruntled graduate student with a history of mental illness who had failed a course stormed into a classroom in the physics department at the University of Crete, started shooting indiscriminately, killed two very well-known physics professors who were also dedicated teachers and educators, while injuring others in the class. This violence had shocked my country and left the university communities traumatized and in disbelief. I only started to realize what had happened here in Canada when I came for graduate studies in the 90s. A good friend and fellow graduate student who I studied with at McMaster University, where I was doing my graduate studies, was studying chemical engineering at the École Polytechnique when the massacre happened. And that's how I first heard about this horrible event. My friend never wanted to talk about this openly. It was obviously too traumatic, and she's a very private person. And I could only decipher bits and pieces. Back then in the 90s, this event was not being discussed openly, at least not that I was aware of from an international graduate student vantage point. I only fully realized the extent of this tragedy when I visited the École Polytechnique for some research collaboration, and I saw the memorial. I didn't expect this, and I recall that it felt like a punch in the stomach. After all these years, I mustered the courage to ask my friend to share her thoughts. I feel very grateful and privileged that she agreed to share her experience, and that she has gracefully allowed me to share it in turn with you. She has also agreed to share her name. It is Céline Bellimer. And this is what Céline had to say in quotes. December 6, 1989, I was in my second year of engineering at the École Polytechnique. The atmosphere at the school was happy and almost festive. This was the end of classes in the fall semester, marking the beginning of a short break prior to completing final exams. The cafeteria was offering a Christmas special on its menu, attracting students from all over the campus. My classes had finished early on that day. Word that the shooting had happened spread out quickly on campus. We were all shocked when we heard about the event in the news, that there had been fatalities. The details on how it unfolded and about the victims were learned over the span of the next few days. We also learned more about the shooter, that he had a history of mental illness. Everybody in our school was affected by the shooting incident, one way or another. Everybody would have known either one of the women who was injured or killed, or somebody who had been a witness to the event, powerless in preventing its unfolding. When thinking about the event, I make a point of remembering all the lives that have been affected, not only those killed and injured, their family and friends. I also think about the devastating effects on our student community and also the effects of mental illness. I find it ironic that we now associate the École Polytechnique, the School of Engineering from which I graduated, with an act of misogyny. In the years that I attended the School of Engineering, we had a vibrant community that had embraced diversity from a gender point of view. My graduating class in chemical engineering was evenly split between male and female. The student association was led by a female president. This is something that was viewed as normal. We did not make a big deal of it. Over the years, the event has been a catalyst to bring about awareness and changes on many issues, such as gender-based violence and gun control. I also see it as an important reminder of the importance of dealing with mental illness. This was not something that was understood back then. Lastly, I hope that it can be used to also celebrate diversity in our school and ultimately in our society. Close quotes. Celine went on to graduate from École Polytechnique. She pursued graduate studies, earned her PhD. She has a lovely family and is a very successful professional and leader in her field. Something that unfortunately her fellow students and classmates, whose memory we honor today, never had the chance to do. Their threads of life having been cut short by a senseless and incomprehensible act of violence, just because they wanted to study engineering. Together with these women whose memory we're honoring today, I would also like us to pause and think a little bit about women all over the world who still to this day cannot pursue their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you, Associate Dean Kontopoulou, for joining us today to open this important memorial and for sharing your friends' poignant insights, which have deepened our understanding of that tragic day. On December 6, 1989, an armed man walked into École Polytechnique in Montreal with the intention of killing women who were studying at the school as an act of anti-feminism. He murdered 14 women and injured 13 more. Among these women, some were attending their last class before graduation. Many were looking forward to promising job prospects. Others were new students at the school, just beginning their education. These women had their entire lives ahead of them, yet tragically, their futures were abruptly and unjustly taken away. This event, which became known as the Montreal Massacre, sent shockwaves through Quebec and Canada. Today, we still mourn the loss of these bright and talented women. Today, 12 engineering students, 1 nursing student, and 1 engineering faculty member have come together to help us remember these women in the rose ceremony. Following this ceremony, we will pause for a moment of silence to reflect and commemorate the victims. Michel Richard.
Michel Richard was born in 1968. Michelle was a materials engineering student in second year. She was presenting a paper with Maud Havernick when she was killed.
Hélène Colgan.
Hélène Colgan was born in 1966. Hélène was in her final year of mechanical engineering and planned to do her master's degree. She had 3 job offers and was leaning towards accepting one in a company based near Toronto.
Nathalie Couteau.
Nathalie Croteau was born in 1966. Nathalie was another graduating mechanical engineer. She had planned to take a 2-week vacation in Cancun, Mexico with Hélène Colgan at the end of the month.
Maurice Leclerc.
Maurice Leclerc was born in 1966. She was a materials engineering student. Maurice had a year to go before graduation and was one of the top students in the school. She acted in plays in junior college.
Sonia Pelletier.
Sonia Pelletier was born in 1961. Sonia was the head of her class and the pride of St. Ulrich, Quebec, her hometown. She had 5 sisters and 2 brothers. She was killed the day before she was to graduate with a degree in mechanical engineering. She had a job interview lined up for the following week.
Annie Turcotte.
Annie Turcotte was born in 1969. Annie was in her first year and lived with her brother in a small apartment near the university. She was described as gentle and athletic, enjoying diving and swimming. She went into metallurgical engineering. So she could one day improve the environment.
Maurice Lagagné.
Maurice Lagunier was born in 1964. She was a budget clerk in the École Polytechnique's finance department and the only non-student killed. Maurice had recently married.
Barbara Daniel.
Barbara Daniel was born in 1967. Barbara was expecting to graduate at the end of the year. She was a teaching assistant for her father, Pierre Daniel, a mechanical engineering professor with the city's other French language engineering school at the Université du Québec à Montréal.
Anne-Marie Lemay.
Anne-Marie Lemay was born in 1967. She was a fourth-year mechanical engineering student.
Anne-Marie Edward.
Anne-Marie Edward was born in 1968. She was a chemical engineering student. Anne-Marie loved outdoor sports like skiing and diving, and she was always surrounded by friends.
Maude Avernick.
Maude Avernick was born in 1960. She was a second-year student in metallurgical engineering and a graduate in environmental design from the Université du Québec à Montréal.
Annie Saint-Arnaud.
Annie Saint-Arnaud was born in 1966. Annie was a mechanical engineering student. She lived in a small apartment in Montreal. She was killed as she sat listening to a presentation in her last class before graduation. She had a job interview with Alcan in Aluminum scheduled for the following day. She had talked about eventually getting married to the man who had been her boyfriend since she was a teenager.
Geneviève Bergeron.
Geneviève Bergeron was born in 1968. She was a second-year scholarship student in mechanical engineering. She played the clarinet and sang in a professional choir. In her spare time, she played basketball and swam.
Barbara Klutznik-Vidovich.
Barbara Marie Klusnick was born in 1958. She was a first-year nursing student. She arrived in Montreal from Poland with her husband in 1987.
We now invite you to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone, for respecting this moment of silence. Let it serve as a powerful reflection of our collective sorrow and as a moment to strengthen our resolve to stand against such atrocities. It is a somber reminder of the profound impact that gender-based violence continues to have on our society. To shed light on the important contributions of women in STEM at Queen's University, particularly within our faculty, as well as the challenges they face, it is my privilege to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Louise Monnier.
On this day we remember. It's been 35 years and it feels like just yesterday. I grew up right next door to University of Montreal. Court. I studied music at the University of Montreal. It was right next door, and these are my colleagues. I went on to study engineering at the Royal Military College, and I graduated in 1989. Today we remember that life is precious, that a peaceful society is elusive, it's fragile, and it's vulnerable. Maggie asked me to speak, and I agreed, and I was hoping to be composed, so please give me a moment. We remember today because despite enormous leaps forward, from the right to vote, to attend school, to be legally recognized as person, to make our own choices, to be admitted in university classrooms, in sports and in uniform, we have come a long ways to obtain gender equality and equality for all humans. And we as a society still face constant reversals and many challenges. It is amazing to me that this is still a thing. We remember, and yet we know that thoughts are just not enough. Remembering is pivotal because as we remember, we learn that we can make a difference, especially starting from a strong place of education like here at Queen's. And that power resides within all of us. We draw inspiration from brave humans. And I would just like to point to three of them this morning. First, Malala Yousafzai, who said that with guns we can kill education, and yet with education we can kill terrorism. And Nelson Mandela, who said that education is the most powerful weapon, and with that we can change the world. And finally, just one more quote, and perhaps the most important. How wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. And those are the words of Anne Frank. We remember and we do not wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. Engineers are builders. We create, we work to solve all sorts of problems. Our goal is to make the world better for everyone. We remember, and from this point we choose to act with kindness. In this moment of reflection, we choose to have a positive effect everywhere around us. And each time we refuse to stay silent when somebody is belittled, somebody that might be bullied or devalued or hurt or cast aside, we can help. Each time we choose to stand and to comfort and to protect, each time we choose to help, to support, to include and to encourage, to lend a hand, to share, to choose a peaceful path, and to take a positive step. These gestures may only have a tiny effect at a time, and yet we can radiate with the lives of many people. We remember because as engineers we are trained to find solutions. We can make a difference. We have a power to effect positive change, and each time we see, witness, experience a problem, we can be useful in implementing a thoughtful solution. Sometimes, because the inequality or the injustice, the prejudice, the hatred has festered for so long, we find that the violence and the persecution seem beyond hope and beyond repair. Yet we must strive to help before that hatred takes hold, and beneath all of that hatred we can find the seed of hope. We want to rebuild towards compassion, and sometimes it takes only a kind word. Sometimes just the time to listen, to explain, to try to help, to build a solution from the ground up and right around each other, to help each other up. A just and a peaceful society, it takes a lot of work, and it takes constant work. There is something that I have learned over the years, and that's that engineers are never afraid of work, and engineers are never working alone. We do work to create a better place. We remember on this day that we lost 14 colleagues, 14 young women, who are not here today to contribute in small and great ways to make our lives better, and in their stead, we carry on and we try to be useful. We remember.
Thank you, Dr. Mornier, for sharing your deeply personal connection to the women we remember today. Your reflection on being a student at the University of Montreal during this time is both powerful and inspiring for all of us, staff and students alike. I also want to mention something I forgot to mention before, is just some information about Dr. Mornier. She began her academic journey with a degree in music before joining the STEM field. She earned a degree in mechanical engineering, specializing in aerospace propulsion, and spent 20 years working in aeronautical engineering. She retired as a senior officer from the Royal Canadian Air Force in 2004. Dr. Monnier then completed a PhD in chemical engineering with a focus on environmental chemistry while working as a consultant. She joined our faculty at Queen's in 2017. In her research, Dr. Monnier collaborates with industrial and academic experts in environmental remediation. As a teaching-focused professor, she is also dedicated to education research with interests in enhancing problem-solving and resilient skills in engineering students, as well as integrating innovative teaching methods into the engineering curriculum. After more than 40 years of professional contributions, Dr. Monnier will retire at the end of this year. However, she will continue her lab work and support her graduate students through their studies. Haley Adams, a 2021 Queen's Civil Engineering graduate, worked alongside the Queen's Women in Engineering chairs to design an art installation here in Beamish Munro Hall, honoring the women who lost their lives on December 6, 1989. To your left, you can see this beautiful installation. Though it was officially unveiled remotely in 2020, we would like to reintroduce it to you to shed light on its purpose. It is a reminder to all students who pass by to give it, to give thought to the tragedy that has occurred, remember and commemorate the victims of the massacre at l'École Polytechnique, and reflect on how we can all contribute to a more inclusive environment at Queen's. In 1991, the Parliament of Canada declared December 6th to be the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. It is also known as White Ribbon Day. As you wear your white ribbon, let it serve as a reminder of this tragedy, the action that has resulted from it, and the work that is yet to be done. Now, the Queen's a cappella group, the Caledonias, will perform a song titled Prayer. This song, written by Whitney Berry, was created specifically to honor the victims of the Montreal Massacre. Thank you to the Caledonias for that lovely performance. I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the 14 volunteers who have helped us honor these women through the rose ceremony. My sincere gratitude also goes to Dr. Louise Meunier and Dr. Mariana Contablu for their thoughtful and inspiring words. A special thank you as well to the Queen's a cappella group for your moving performance, which has provided us with a moment of It is important that we come together as a community each year to reflect on the significance of this day and the ongoing need to stand against gender-based violence. For those joining us in person, we will now have a reception. Feel free to help yourself to coffee, tea, sandwiches, and pastries that has been provided by the tea room just back there. Thank you.